Shalom, everybody. Thank you very much for coming. 1944, Budapest. The 400,000 plus Jews of Hungary have been herded into ghettos and containment areas. The Nazis and the Aerocross party who supported them have decided to close the last chapter of the Holocaust and to speed them all to Auschwitz and Treblinka, places of death where there's no returning from. One of the cattle cars overloaded. Suddenly a thin young man appears and begins handing out Schutz passes, temporary residence visas, in effect making everyone who has one into a Swedish citizen. He starts handing them out. The cattle cars are being sealed by the SS and by the Aerocross, and this young man is handing out passes. Hands are reaching out. Please, please. The SS says, "Get out of here. What are you doing? Stop that." The young man completely ignores them. He jumps up to the top, the top of the cattle cars. He starts walking along, reaching down to the windows. People reaching up with passports. He's taking the passports. SS starts yelling at him. They start telling their collaborators, "Shoot him!" Aerocross starts shooting. Not a single bullet hits. They must have been missing on purpose, so someone says. This young man's name is Raoul Wallenberg. He's 32 years old. From a wealthy Swedish family, studied architecture in the United States, hitchhiked across America in the 1920s, traveled the world. One of the places he got to go to was to Haifa for just a few months. It was one of his family's businesses. When he heard what was going on in Europe, it was more than he could stand. He accepted an appointment from the Swedish government in coordination with the Refugee Board, the United States government, with the express purpose of trying to save who he could. He didn't go to record. He didn't go to bear witness. He didn't go as a journalist. He didn't go to take pictures. He knew that what was going on was already well known. He knew about the silence of the world. Instead, he went to act. And in the few months before he was arrested and disappeared by the KGB, he may have saved up to 100,000 souls. Using the money from the Refugee Board, he rented apartment buildings. He would put giant signs, Swedish Library, Swedish Research Institute, with giant Swedish flags. And he would house the refugees who he had saved in these places. The audacity, the chutzpah, the sleight of hand, never been seen before. In the face of the death heads of the SS, he completely ignored his own personal safety, completely ignored the threat to do what he came to do. At the end of it all, nothing was left of him. He disappeared into the Soviet gulags. We don't even know what he was accused of. But when this greatest rescuer of human history needed rescuing himself, nobody stood up for him. Nobody stood up for Raoul. Some of the survivors built memorials, such as the one behind us, and it was seeing that moved us to learn when he was born, August 6th, 1912, and to create an opportunity to remember his incredible heroism. Not just as a historical footnote, but because we believe that now more than ever, the message of Raoul Wallenberg, and if we could only have had 5 minutes with him, just 5 minutes to say, why did you do it, Raoul? These people, these weren't your people at all. Not your religion, not your faith, not your ethnicity. Strangers, why? How? We'll never get to ask those questions. We'll never get to find out the mystery of Raoul Wallenberg. But we can give him our respect, our love, our honor, our longing. And we can pledge ourselves to stand up for the other, as he did. We owe him that much, to know his name. I want to thank Mayor Michael Soriano of Parsippany and all the other dignitaries of Parsippany who are here, who have made this day the day to honor Raoul Wallenberg in this beautiful, diverse, amazing township, so emblematic of our country. The message of Raoul Wallenberg seems to fit here so well, as does this beautiful sculpture in his memory. I'd like to thank you for braving the elements. I'd like to thank the members of the interfaith community who are here. I'd like to thank those of the Human Relations Commission of Morris County who've come to mark this day, and even more importantly, to pledge to undertake the mission that the legacy of this incredible human being has given us, and a special welcome to the members of the Swedish consulate, to be so proud of their son, the son of Stockholm, the son of Sweden, Raoul Wallenberg, who we honor today. I'd like to invite Mayor Michael Soriano, who has made this day possible, supported it in every way, and declared it as a holiday in Parsippany. I hope, God willing, someday this day should be celebrated across New Jersey, across the country, across the world, so we all know the name Raoul Wallenberg. Please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming. Raoul Wallenberg is a hero to me. It's a name that I knew before I was asked about this, and the irony of being asked to do this really struck me at the time. There was a Raoul Wallenberg Park in Manhattan that I was aware of that I would sit and think at, and I had to research the name to find it out. Mind you, this is before the internet, so it was a little harder to research that. I have a long list of real-life heroes. Martin Luther King, Jackie Robinson, Teddy Roosevelt, and Raoul Wallenberg. And right now we're living in an era of real-life, everyday heroes. First responders, nurses, doctors, restaurant workers, people who just do what they thought was doing what they need to do to get through the day. And I think that's what Raoul Wallenberg did. He was doing what he needed to do to get through the day, because I don't think he could have lived with himself if he didn't do something or tried something. A time where this memorial is called Courage and Compassion. That's what Raoul Wallenberg had. I also think of fictional heroes I've had. And sometimes I think that fictional heroes are as important as real-life heroes. Atticus Finch, Harper Lee's character from To Kill a Mockingbird, is a hero of mine. As a boy, I was fascinated by the story of Perseus, as he fought the Medusa, and he rode the Pegasus. He was a slayer of monsters in Greek mythology, and was a grandfather to Heracles. Jack Ryan from the Tom Clancy novels is a big hero of mine in the books as well as in the movies. A man who stood up for what was right and didn't do it with his fists and his muscles, but with his brain, his intellect. Captain America, is a big one of mine. Anyone who knows me is someone I see very much as a hero. And I want to pause with that because who preceded Captain America was Superman. In fiction. It was created in the very early 30s by two young Jewish boys by the name of Joe Simon and Jerry Siegel. They were bullied and schooled. They were made to feel like outsiders. They were made to feel that they weren't American because of their heritage and their religion. So they created this character that during the day was just a mild-mannered reporter for the Daily Planet, was sort of seen as, you know, maybe not a cool or interesting person, who would then turn into this alter ego of a super character that had super morals and superpowers to fight. Years later, when we were at the brink of World War II, Jack Kirby and Joe Simon created this character by the name of Captain America, who was a skinny, nerdy kid from Brooklyn who also didn't fit in, and in that they reflected themselves, who then went on to fight the Nazis. The first cover of Captain America ever actually has Captain America himself punching Hitler right in the jaw. That had an impact on people. Most people don't know that these comic books of Superman actually went to fight against the Nazis. Captain America fighting against the Nazis were actually handed to soldiers that were in the trenches on the front line to lift the morale, lift their spirits. And some of these heroes, years and decades later, inspired a skinny, scrawny, nerdy kid from Flushing, Queens in the same way. All coming from Jewish creators and writers. What's notable about Captain America to me, the scientist in the comic book that created the formula that would make him powerful, his name was Professor Erskine. And that was their way of honoring Albert Einstein. They made the name very similar because Albert Einstein was, we all know, was running away from Hitler because Hitler had him on a #1 list and became an American citizen and donated his intellect here. And I always think of his quote, because he's another hero of mine. My favorite quote of his is, "Imagination is more important than knowledge." It's that kind of thinking that came up with E = MC squared. Now think of the imagination that the rabbi just described of Raoul Wallenberg, the creativity that he came up with to protect people's lives. That's important. And all just from imagination. All from fictional heroes. And we are living in an age of heroes where we need real heroes. Except in this case, this hero doesn't wear a cape or a fancy costume or have a magic shield or have superpowers. This hero had two superpowers: courage and compassion. Thank you. With that, I would like to thank some of our special guests here representing the Township of Parsippany. Council President Michael DiPiero, former Mayor of Parsippany, James Barbario, President of the Board of Education, Frank Neglia, from the Economic Development Committee, Justin Musella, and from the Open Space Committee, Corey Herbig. So thank you very much. Parsippany is here. This monument stands right at the heart of our township. And it is a heart that is the lifeblood of any entity. So I like to think this courage and compassion is a symbol that fuels Parsippany. And we will forever stand by anyone who stands up for courage and compassion. We will forever stand by anyone who will stand up and say, this is wrong and I need to do something about it, because it matters. People's lives matter. Dignity matters. What happens to the least of us matters. Thank you very much, and God bless you all.
Thank you. It's such an amazing tribute and thoughts. I wanted to welcome the some of the members of the interfaith community here in Parsippany, and very shortly Reverend Susan Sika of St. Gregory's Episcopal Church will be speaking. I also wanted to welcome Pastor Fred Lentz of St. Andrew's Lutheran Church, and I also wanted to welcome, of course, my friend Rabbi Shalom Lubin of Shaya Ahavas HaTorah, and say Mazal Tov on a new arrival, and Mazal Tov on your recovery, my dear. We've been praying for you, so we're so happy you're here and you're okay. But also our newest member, and the Interfaith Council gets together every month. We've been doing it on Zoom, but sooner or later we're going to have to get back together again, and we just talk among ourselves and build relationships, and that's the most important thing. And I just wanted to welcome, just to say a few words, at our first, I think, public gathering, Rabbi Eli Miller, of the new rabbi of Beth Am. So, Rabbi, please.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. The very last, so richly, brightly, dazzling yellow. Perhaps if the sun's tears would sing against a white stone, such a yellow is carried lightly way up high. It went away, I'm sure, because it wished to kiss the world goodbye. The very last, so richly, brightly, dazzling yellow. Perhaps if the sun's tears could sing against a white stone. For 7 weeks I've lived in here, penned up inside this ghetto. But I have found my people here. The dandelions call to me, and the white chestnut branches in the court. Only I never saw another butterfly. The very last, so richly, brightly, dazzling yellow. Perhaps if the sun's tears could sing against a white stone, that butterfly was the last one. Butterflies don't live in here. A beautiful poem written by Pavel Friedman, who perished in the Holocaust. When we remember the Holocaust, we say, never forget. Never forget the atrocities and the horrors committed. Never forget that 6 million Jews and minorities were senselessly murdered. But we also say, never forget. Never forget the bravery and the courage of those who risked their lives to save others, of those who hid and those who were hidden. The Holocaust was a time of tremendous evil and a time of small but incredible good. Raoul Wallenberg was a bit of that good. His courageous acts served as a reminder that even in the face of evil, we can exemplify bravery. We honor his memory today with this incredible monument that will serve for each of us as an everlasting reminder to be brave and courageous and compassionate, and to stand up for the rights and needs of all of humanity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rabbi. I'm so sorry I did not notice that Reverend Stacy Turk is here as well, and welcome, Reverend Turk, as well as Pastor Jeff Edwards. So we thank you very much. It's nice to see you guys in person after all this time of just seeing faces. I forget how tall you all are and how good looking, of course. So very nice to see you, Pastor Ed. Thank you. So I wanted to introduce and invite speaking on behalf of our Parsippany interfaith community, Reverend Susan Sika. Please, Reverend Sika.
Good afternoon. It's an honor to be here. I bring you a word from the Christian tradition. In our Holy Scripture, we read that Jesus says to his disciples, "There is no greater love than to lay down one's life for one's friends." Today we honor someone who did just that. There is no doubt that Raoul Wallenberg, in risking then losing his life for the sake of others, fulfilled the Christian ideal. Indeed, he fulfilled the human ideal. And for this we honor him as one of the righteous. He wasn't the only one, but those he saved only needed one person to step up, one person to step in, anyone, someone with the courage and compassion to change the course of history. So let us, then, remember always his courage and his witness to love. Let us always be ready to affirm the bond of our common humanity. Let us never be called to this kind of sacrifice, not for the lack of courage or compassion, but because we affirm everyone's dignity, that such courage is unnecessary, because enemies have become friends. I leave you with this blessing today. May God bless you with a restless discomfort about easy answers, half-truths, and superficial relationships, so that you may seek truth boldly and love deep within your heart. May God bless you with holy anger at injustice, oppression, and exploitation of people, so that you may tirelessly work for justice, freedom, and peace among all people. May God bless you with the gift of tears, to shed with those who suffer from pain, rejection, starvation, or the loss of all that they cherish, so that you may reach out your hand to comfort them and transform their pain into joy. May God bless you with enough foolishness to believe that you really can make a difference in this world, so that you are able, with God's grace, do what others claim cannot be done. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Sika. I just wanted to, on a personal note, I wanted to thank Reverend Sika for her friendship for these past 6 years that we've been involved together in the Parsippany Interfaith Council, and to say that we will certainly miss her, her leadership, her courage and compassion, her kindness, and all that she has brought, and we look forward to continuing our relationship of friendship. I'm very happy to invite another member of the Interfaith Council community, Rabbi Shalom Lubin of Shaya Ahavas HaTorah. Please.
Good afternoon, everyone. You know, a wise man once said there are two questions every person needs to ask themselves. First question is, what can I do to make the world a better place? And that's a wonderful question. It's an empowering question. It's a question that makes us feel good. What can I do to make the world better? The second question is, what am I actually doing? That question hits a punch to all of us. And I'd like to make a practical suggestion. This is a wonderful event. It's special being here honoring a wonderful and special hero like Raoul Wallenberg. But in a little bit of time, we'll go back home, we'll feel good about the event, and I question each and every one of us to ask ourselves, I challenge us to ask ourselves, what am I going to do to be a little more like Raoul Wallenberg? What can I do in my life to show the courage and show the strength in a small little way to be a little bit more like him. And I think there's a very simple suggestion I'd like to make. Raoul Wallenberg reached out and saved lives of people that were despondent, that were isolated, that really had no other options. And in this pandemic era that we're in, we all know people that are isolated, that are alone, that are despondent, that don't have the social networks we may have and don't get out the way we do. And I think if we picked up the phone and called them and reached out to them, just to do our own little part to say, Raoul Wallenberg lived a long time ago. And while his acts are heroic, they don't stand on their own without us perpetuating them today. If we could do that and reach out to those in our own circle, then we can answer not only what can I do to make the world better, but we can answer the much more important question of what am I actually doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi Lubin. The Morris County Human Relations Commission is a organization created by the freeholders, and it's meant to foster dialogue and to respond to incidents of bigotry, racism, and discrimination, to build human bridges between communities and between hearts. I am so proud and so happy to be able to welcome here the chair of the Human Relations Commission, Clarence Curry Jr., as well as our members, Dr. Dennis Copeland of the Randolph Middle School, and Harshad Anjaria, and other members. So, Mr. Curry, Clarence, are you? Oh, there you are. Clarence, Mr. Curry will address a few words on behalf of the Human Relations Commission. Also wanted to just mention Meyer and Sue Rosenthal. Sorry, all the members, founding members of the commission. So thank you very much. Please.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being here. I want to also, before I get into my remarks, comment that Rabbi Rudin serves as the vice chair, and the work that we are doing is very much enhanced by his contributions. So we are very fortunate to have Rabbi Rudin as a member of the leadership team of the Morris County Human Relations Commission. Well, you've been told that I'm Clarence H. Curry Jr., and I do serve as the chair of the Morris County Human Relations Commission, an organization committed to working for equality, equity, social justice, recognition, and respect for all individuals and groups in our communities. I am really seriously honored to welcome you and to be part of this, to this recognition and this celebration of the life of Raoul Wallenberg, an example of courage, sacrifice, strength, and I might add, a fellow University of Michigan alum. Thank you for joining us in this recognition, and thank you, Parsippany, thank you, Mayor Soriano, for ensuring we never forget by having this annual day of remembrance. This year's remembrance theme, a hero for our time, is very, very appropriate, as well as the name of this monument, this statue, Courage and Compassion, honoring this extraordinary humanitarian who lived these qualities and died living these qualities. It is perhaps more important this year than ever because we are at an inflection point in our country, and indeed, I might say, our world. We find the dangerous seeds of division, the dangerous seeds of polarization at every level, and at levels unseen since perhaps, at least in this country, the 1800s. No doubt there are large numbers of our citizens and even you as citizens who are sitting here and saying, I'm tired, I'm perplexed, I'm confused, I'm ambivalent, or I just want things to go back to being normal. These are things that make us uncomfortable. They contribute to making us either choose to not become involved or to say that I can't. To choose to determine to make a difference and be a difference, or choose to sit on the sidelines and say it's going to be all right. Many of us will stand back and say, well, the reason I'm not involved is because I'm not prepared. I mean, I'm just one person. This thing is huge. It's national, it's international. What can I do? Well, let me suggest to you that the life of Raoul Wallenberg serves to challenge these positions. His life demonstrated with courage, commitment, and compassion, we all can not only make a difference, we can be the difference. He showed us that. He did so notwithstanding that he came from a life of privilege. He didn't have to do it. Someone said earlier, I think it was Rabbi Rudin, this man came from wealth. He was only 1/16 Jewish, though he often claimed to be half Jewish. But in his heart, I'm sure he was. Because we all are. Because when one is oppressed, we all are oppressed. So I understand that distinction of him saying that he was 50% Jewish. His legacy for us and what he chose to do, in many ways, although he was wealthy and came from prominence, within his circle, like many of us within our circles, he was an ordinary man. There was nothing in particular within his own sphere that made him extraordinary. But he chose to be extraordinary. His legacy and his exemplification of being extraordinary was his willingness to sacrifice, to have courage, and to have compassion. That is the challenge that we all have. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Clarence. That was beautiful. Thank you so much. So thanks. So if you're sitting in a chair or under this this awning, it's because a couple of folks from Adat Shalom were up really, really early, schlepping it all here. And I wanted to thank not only organizers of this event, but but organizers of so much. It has brought benefit to our community. The Holocaust Council of Greater Metro West, the Human Relations Commission, Adat Shalom, and many other ways of giving back and making a difference. Meyer and Sue Rosenthal. Just stand up and just give us a little say hi. Just wanted to thank you very much. Meyer is going to talk to us because when I first noticed 7 years ago this monument, I didn't know what a monument to Raoul Wallenberg was doing in Parsippany. I was a newbie, and Meyer told me. So I'd like to invite Meyer to tell us how it came to be that this monument came to be in Smithfield, in your beautiful park, in your beautiful township.
So thank you, Rabbi. This monument that you are seated and standing before, the idea started back in 1989. And a committee was formed, and as you've heard, the reasons for the committee to try to have some kind of a permanent monument to recognize what Raoul Wallenberg means to all of us as an honorary citizen, one of the few of the United States. The committee worked for more than 9 years. I just want to take a personal note to indicate that there is one person who is here today that was on that original committee and saw it all the way through, and that's my wife Sue, who was from day one involved with this. So from 1989, the committee decided to put up a monument with the help of Mayor at the time in Parsippany, Mimi Letts. The land was provided, and they scoped out 10 different proposals for what the monument would be. And the winning proposal was from an artist whose studio is in Lambertville, New Jersey, by the name of Edward Adams. And Edward Adams fabricated this sculpture. Now what you're looking in front of you, unfortunately, because of the umbrella, but you can look at the topping here. The monument is 13 feet high. It's a sculptured or a fabricated bronze sculpture. It weighs 1,500 pounds. If you were thinking of taking it home, don't. The title of it, as you've heard many times and so appropriately, is Courage and Compassion. No two words can better describe what Raoul Wallenberg accomplished in less than 1 year in Hungary. He arrived in Hungary on July 9, 1944. He was arrested by the KGB on January 17, 1945. This monument shows two curved square-edged bands of bronze extending upwards, forming an imperfect semicircle, or, if you really look at it, kind of a broken heart. The bands do not meet, but each connects to a hexagon, which connects the two pieces. When viewed from where you're looking at it, it appears as a broken heart that looks almost like it's being brought together. It's symbolic what Wallenberg did by saving so many people. The sculptor, Ed Adams, described the form as, and I'm quoting, inspired by the sight of tree limbs bending in the cold of winter. The trees, naked and waiting for spring, are like the Jews of wartime Europe waiting for signs of hope. The twisted metal took on the form of a heart, which can be seen as either broken or healing. Certainly a guiding light for future generations, and proof that one person can make a difference. In terms of the artistic creativity of Ed Adams, he stated, "As I was imagining and designing this sculpture, I asked myself, do I design a sculpture that pays tribute to a particular man, or do I design a sculpture that honors the human qualities that provoked him to accomplish extraordinary deeds? I chose to create a sculpture that pays tribute to the courage and compassion of this man's character and the impact of his deeds." In truth, Raoul Wallenberg was an ordinary person. He was the same as you and I, yet he was compelled to act upon powerful qualities stirring inside his humanity, qualities that made a difference between life and death. In the face of indifference, in the midst of brutality, and standing in the center of profound suffering, Raoul Wallenberg confronted that suffering and acted to relieve it. So today we focus on a sculpture, and we honor a man who performed exceptional deeds. But in fact, we all stand in tribute to two human qualities inside each and every one of us: courage and compassion. Are we less challenged by the conditions in the world today? Are we less likely to be indifferent to the suffering of others? Are we less vulnerable to be blamed, diminished of our dignity, or persecuted for our beliefs? Ed Adams concluded, and I think we all do, that the answer is emphatically no. It's my privilege at this time to introduce our keynote speaker, the Consul General of New York for the country of Sweden. And you've heard over and over again that Raoul Wallenberg is the proud product of Sweden. Annika Rembe is the Consul General of Sweden. Prior to that, she was the Director General and President of the Swedish Institute, a public agency that promotes interest and trust in Sweden around the world. She's served many high-ranking positions on behalf of the Swedish government and the Swedish people. Last year, as you know, in the midst of COVID, we weren't gathered here as we have been over the last few years. We had to do a totally virtual presentation. And we wanted to have the participation of the Swedish consulate, which has been so supportive of this statute over the last few years. And we contacted Consul Rembe, and she agreed to do a video for us. And she did the video. It was a wonderful video that was part of the program that was done last year. This year, we wanted to see the real Consul Rembe, and she was good enough to come out from New York today and to be able to speak to us today. Just one last thing as I call up Ambassador Rembe. She is a graduate of Stockholm University, and she has a master's degree in law, so be well. Consul Rembe.
Well, thank you for having me this year. Dear friends, Mayor, Rabbi, distinguished guests here today, thank you for letting me be included in such a important but also thought-giving afternoon here in Parsippany. It's really both a pleasure and an honor to be here, and I'm really proud to address you all as the Swedish Consul General in New York, and of course to honor the memory of Raoul Wallenberg. I'm also very happy that this actually takes place in real life again. It's wonderful to see people. It's wonderful to see real eyes, to hear real voices again. I think the last year and a half has taught us a lot about how important real interaction actually is. First, I would like to extend my warmest greetings from Sweden to the town of Parsippany, Troy Hills, and to the Adath Shalom Synagogue and its congregation, and to the people around here. Few Swedes have received as much international acclaim and attention as Raoul Wallenberg, and maybe rightfully so. In 1981, he became the second of a total of just 8 people to be named honorary citizens of the United States. That is an honor, of course, a true honor, and others include Winston Churchill and Mother Teresa. And Wallenberg, we've heard a lot about him today, but he was probably not the heroic type in the conventional sense, but he was fearless, and he was a skilled negotiator and an organizer. And I think he had America partly to thank for that. He not only spent 4 years at the College of Architecture at the University of Michigan, as we've heard, but he also hitchhiked around the US. And hitchhiking gives you training in diplomacy and tact. Wallenberg wrote home to his mother in a letter. And I think that it's the meeting, the unexpected, that actually gives you that training and that opportunity also to interact. So Wallenberg served as a Swedish diplomat only a very short time, actually, 6 months. But during that time, he reportedly, together with colleagues and people from different countries and supported by the United States, made a great difference. And a few days before Wallenberg was taken by the Soviets in January 1945, he was urged by a Swedish colleague to return to Sweden to be safe. But Wallenberg replied, "To me, there is no other choice. I've accepted this assignment and I could never return to Stockholm without the knowledge that I've done everything in human power to save as many Jews as possible." And the extraordinary achievement and courage of Raoul Wallenberg in the face of the greatest of dangers, in the darkest hour, is a constant reminder of how one's person's dedication can save thousands of lives. Raoul Wallenberg's deed should be seen, as so many of you have pointed out today, should be seen as a call to all of us today to act against intolerance and hate, against anti-Semitism and xenophobia. To act. And perhaps the best way we can honor Raoul Wallenberg is to try to follow his moral conviction and his personal courage. To have courage and compassion. And to quote another American hero, Dr. Martin Luther King, "Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter." And I think this year has also learned us a lot about that. To help make sure that there is no silence, the Swedish Prime Minister will be hosting a large international conference against anti-Semitism and for the continued remembrance and education on the Holocaust. This conference had to be postponed due to the pandemic. It was supposed to take place last year, but it will take place in October this year in the city of Malmö. Leaders from all the larger organizations representing Jewish interests and interfaith interests, as well as state leaders, will meet together. And I just want to conclude by conveying a warm thank you again on behalf of Sweden and behalf of the Swedish people for honoring the legacy of Raoul Wallenberg, including this beautiful, absolutely beautiful piece of art. And I'm so glad that I personally came to see it here today. And for dedicating this day to his memory. Thank you again, and thank you for sharing all your thoughts and ideas. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Councilman. We have something for you from behalf of the Dasalom and of the Township of Parsippany. Thank you very much for coming out.
You don't have to water them.
Thank you so much. And thank you for your patience.
So we're almost at the end, and it looks like the weather is urging us on. But I'd like to invite everyone to please rise for a moment of silence. I would also like to invite Elaine and Lisa and little Dina, children of Hungary, children, grandchild, and great-grandchild of survivors from Hungary. I'd like to invite Edna Albert, beloved daughter of Alex Buchler, a Wallenberg survivor, to place a flower on the structure, on the sculpture, representing perhaps the teaching in the Mishnah that Kol hamatzil nefesh achat, everybody who saves one life, ki'ilu itzilu olam kulo, it is as if they have saved the entire world. I'd like to just indulge you with the prayer of remembrance. I say this prayer with tremendous reluctance, not because Raoul wasn't Jewish, because he was all of us, but because it says that he has passed on. We still don't know where the grave of Raoul Wallenberg is. We still don't know what happened after that day in January 1945. But we all must remember. We all must be Raoul Wallenberg. El male rachamim, shochen b'meramim, hamtzei menucha nechuna, tachat kanfei hashchina, b'malot kedoshim etzorim, kezoar arakia masiri. Et nishmat Raoul ben Miriam v'Gustav shalach לעולמו. בגן עדן תהיה מנוחתו נבל הרחמים, אז תראה בסדק כנפיך לעולמים וצרור בצור החיים ונשמתו. אדוני הוא נחלתו וינוח בשלום על משכבו. The eternal God, who embraces all souls, hold close the soul of Raoul, the son of Gustav and Miriam, who's gone to his eternal home. May Garden of Eden be his resting place. Please give us the power to continue to inspire his legacy with meaning through acts of courage and compassion that we do in his memory. May his soul be gathered up in the bundle of life eternal. And let us say, Amen. We cannot conclude without a call to action. I'd like to invite Dr. Ali Chaudhry, who in many ways is the leader of our interfaith work, who has created a pledge that he has challenged, invited all of us to stand up, to not be bystanders, but to stand by the other. Please, Dr. Chaudhry.
Assalamu alaikum. I will be very brief. As a Muslim, I felt obligated to be a part of this commemoration of the courage and passion of an excellent example of a human being. Imagine when the state is committing this atrocity against other human beings, that he had the courage to stand up to it. As an example for all of us, I happen to live in Basking Ridge, president of the Islamic Society of Basking Ridge, but I'm very actively involved in Morris County and being a proud member of the Morris County Diversity Coalition that about 3 years ago started celebrating, let me take this off so at least you can hear me better, a Diversity Day. And in fact, middle of July, we just had the third one. We had to do it virtually, but it is important enough for us to recognize that God created us as human beings. And in the Quran we are reminded that we made you into tribes and nations so that you may recognize each other. But remember that you were created for one pair of human beings. We are all the creature of the same God. But we are all encouraged then. We are different in many ways. And God is encouraging us to know each other. Because once we begin to know each other as human beings, then bigotry and hate has no place. Unfortunately, bigotry and hate is learned. It is not natural for people to hate others. So, I would just like to share one verse of the Quran that actually Rabbi Rubin also mentioned that, we should get to know each other, reach out to people, help them in times when they may be worried about things. Okay? And Rabbi Rudin just read a verse from the Torah, which is exactly the same language in the Quran. That whosoever saves one life, it is as if they have saved all of mankind. And whosoever takes one life, it is as if they have taken life of all mankind. So we share in the beliefs, in the values of human life. So today, for us to encourage ourselves and others around us to not be silent when we see bigotry or when we hear words of hatred from others. So this time I'd like to thank you for standing already. Generally when we end as a call to action, people wonder, what can I do as an individual human being living in Basking Ridge or Parsippany or Boonton? I was president of the Islamic Center in Boonton for about 10 years, so Morris County is very close to my heart. So here is something that each one of us can do. And I firmly believe that if every one of us really believed in the spirit of this pledge, I believe we can transform the world. Just a word about the history of the pledge. It is not something I just dreamt up one day, that we needed a pledge. It actually grew out of a meeting more than 5 years ago at Drew University, when interfaith leaders from all over the state were together. I won't go into the history, but that is when I asked people that when we see hatred, when we see a harm being done to others, what is our responsibility as faith leaders? What should we be doing? And that's when I asked them, would you at least make this pledge that if you see bigotry, if you see hatred, that you will not stay silent. It will take courage. And yes, we are recognizing courage and compassion of Raoul Wallenberg. It takes courage to speak up to a friend, to a relative, even a colleague who is saying something bigoted. It takes a great courage. But I feel that if we can all do this, I really believe we can bring about the change that we are all seeking. So if I may at this point ask you to please repeat after me, a few words at a time. I affirm the dignity of every human being. Therefore, while interacting with members of my own community, or those of any faith, race, gender, ability, ethnicity, or any individuals, if I hear hateful comments or see hateful actions against any other group or individuals, I pledge to stand up for the other and speak up to challenge bigotry in any form. Thank you very much. There are handouts available. There are links to a website where you can read more details. You can sign the pledge online. Thousands and thousands of people have signed it. including the New Jersey legislators, all state senators and members of the assembly, and every elected official I've been able to reach has signed this pledge. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody. Bless you all. Stay dry, stay warm, and we look forward to renewing our community, renewing hope, renewing faith, renewing love and compassion and courage. Thank you again.
For the address, so yeah, that's good.
Do you want me to send it to you? Or you have it?
I have it, but it's hard.